I guess I just kind of figured this might be easier to go through in a recording rather than trying to grab everybody and do it, especially with the way it's been a little inconsistent as far as being up or down, up or down. So it's up right now, or it seems to be. So I wanted to kind of capture a quick recording of what I've done. Uh, pardon me. So basically, if I want to start out and I look at staymates, I've created there's basically two folders within each client. There's client reports, which would be kind of individualized clients, like I've got live events, more like this, and progressive profiling in their statements. And then the standard reporting, which would be the reporting that gets duplicated to each client. And under standard reporting, we have dashboards. You can see there's 12 different dashboards listed. If you go under the dashboards, there's typically a dashboard and then at least one question. Sometimes there'll be a count question involved with it as well. So under each one of these, you'll see not a lot to it, but just that everything that relates to that dashboard. Under lists, this is just a list of everything useful. We use these for drop downs and different parts within the queries. That's basically the setup of it. So let me go into any of these, pardon me. Doesn't matter which one you start because they're all kind of interrelated. So let me get rid of this. So I'm in the campaigns right now. Campaigns was kind of more of a niche type. Let's start at the top. Profile property usage. All right, so the first thing you'll see is every one of these dashboards has got this side navigation bar. And what that does is it moves you from dashboard to dashboard without having to jump back into the Metabase browser, basically. If you're looking at these, you'll see the idea of the profile property usage dashboard is where are they being used, right? If I look up one profile property, is it being used in observers, conversations, segments, integrations? Also, how many profiles have a value for that profile property? I guess the beginning of this was the idea that I've created quite a few duplicated profile properties, and I'd like to delete them out. But before I do, I need to make sure that they're not being used anywhere. But there's other uses for this as well. So you'll look over here. This is a drop-down menu. This is going to list all the profile properties. And again, that's pulling from the list. This is just a static menu. It doesn't matter which way you pick it. If you pick it from the drop-down or if you pick it from here. You'll see the observers, the conversation segments, and integrations. They look kind of funny when you start out at them, right? Because look at all of this. That's the same one listed multiple times. The reason why is because we flattened out the data so as I can select any profile property and it'll pop it up, right? So for each one of these instances, it's actually one profile property that's being used. Like this Metabase test has got multiple profile properties that's being used. So if I were to filter it by any one of those, we want it to pop up. So really this dashboard is only to be used when it's filtered. So let's do a quick one. Let's use test accounts. I'll filter that. I deleted the conversation that it was on just for this. But basically what this says is test accounts. It's on one observer. It's being used there. It's being used on a lot of segments. So that's the big usage. It's also being used in integration. Again, I just created the integration and a conversation a while back, so it would appear. You can click on any of these and they'll go to their own dashboard, the observers dashboard, the segment dashboard, the integrations dashboard. Or you can, this is how many profile properties or how many profiles have test account with a value in it. You can click on this as well, and this will take you to the list of those profiles. Yeah. So this is not filtered by, or this is not grouped by name. So there's really not 43 profile properties. There's 43 instances of it. So you'll see some of them are listed multiple times. And I've gone back and forth as far as whether it'd be better that way or better grouped. Probably gonna go back and group them. I want to look in there real quick. So this is a profile property review. This is kind of a handy one. It's right now it's filtered by test count because the previous dashboard that I came from was filtered by it. But we could also filter this by SEUID. In this case, it's being filtered by both the test account and SEUID, so it's only showing the one. But if I were to remove that, you'll see all the profile properties on this. These are not appearing with a name because these are the defaults. So they don't have a name. I need to figure out a way to pull their key if they don't have a name, or something else is going on there. I fixed that yesterday, but I'll take a look at that and figure out what's going on there. You can also filter by value if you wanted. That's a little bit more of a niche type of thing. I can't think of very many times you do it, but it was simple to add in. So let's go back to this profile property usage dashboard. This was the original one. And let's go test count again. And let's look at observers. So this is an interesting one for tracking things as far as what profiles have triggered what. So in this case, it's that test account setter. It's a kind of an odd observer that I have that will set your profile to as a test account within certain, if you visit a certain URL or whatever. However, what this is going to do is going to show me all the profiles that have ever triggered that observer. Could be useful to see how what profiles have triggered different observers that would fire different conversations, which profiles have come, any type of observer that we'd want to track to see how many times it's fired or who it's fired. This is where we would do it. We'll give this a few moments to fill. Some of these do take some time because this is going through quite a bit of data. The test account setter for the observer names, I'd have to review it, but it's profile events. I believe we have to pull it from profile events. So it's a large table. And then it's filtering it and a bunch of other stuff to it. So I'm going to give it a couple more moments. Typically, it fills relatively quickly. One of the slower ones that we have is the integrations. That one will fill relatively slow too. I'd say the observers and the integrations are the two slower of the list, but the integrations is a little. 152. We'll give it a 2.5. While that's loading, I can kind of take a look at here. So you can see all of these campaigns, conversations, integrations, multiple segments, page duration. Basically, all of these folders will line up with the dashboards listed on the left-hand side. We're at 2.5 minutes, still not populating, so we're going to move on. Close this back up. So one of the other usage ones, other than profile property usage, let's see if this is going to load. Usually a good way to tell if things are loading are these drop downs, because these are just simple lists. If it's not going to load these, something's going on. Well, let's look at the segment usage. So this is similar to the profile property usage. I wanted to see where we're using these segments, right? I've created so many additional segments that I'd like to delete some of them, but it's nice to see where they're being used. And so again, we've got a list of, or pardon me, this is a drop down. I had autofill. I had to do that for some reason. I need to investigate that. But here's a list of all the segments. So let's do the same thing. Let's just go. All right. So again, you'll see this is a little bit different than the 43 profiles that had um, test account to it, right? Because these are the profiles that are actually in test accounts. So those duplicates that we're seeing under the profile property, we won't see under the segments. Um, what we're seeing here is all the observers that use the test accounts, all the conversations, all the campaigns, and all the integrations. And then here's the profiles and segments. What we could do real quick is click the profiles and segments, and this will take you to a list um, of all the accounts within that segment, or all the profiles within that segment. And this, you'll notice, it isn't duplicating, right? Like before, we would saw two of Shane Osterman's, a couple of mine, because I had reiterated that. That was counting every time that that profile property had gotten hit or updated on. This is just counting the segment, which takes that value of it into consideration. So let's go back. Actually, before I do that, this is profiles and segment. So interesting, we could do test accounts. These is everything in test accounts. If I do it by the SEU ID, this is obviously filtered by both, so it's going to be shown both, but I can do this, and this shows me every segment that that profile is in. So this is a kind of a two-way dashboard as well. Let's go back to segment usage. And so if we were to go from here, it looks like we're using it in one of these conversations. Conversations is pretty interesting. Find a good one to show you. Actually, let's just go to the conversations page. So here, this is showing conversations. We can filter it by the name. Just do PPE. Let's do the most recent group of questions. Question one. So this is going to show me I've got 31 total responses, 21 unique responses, which means the same profile was answered multiple times. It's not being counted. The views, it takes a while to calculate the views, especially on this. It's an inline one, so the views are going to be pretty large because it's showing every time that was fired basically on a page load. So if I look at responded, we've got the list of all the 31 people that responded, and you can see why that there's a disparity between the uniques and the responded. I've responded myself a few times. Interesting. And this is just kind of taking it for all questions and taking in all the responses that we've had to this. So we've been a little sloppy as far as when I originally setting these up. We had changed the response options a few different times, and this is going to retain every response. So it's kind of a lesson learned as far as making sure that we have the responses solidified and done before we even start kind of testing, or I need to filter out my tests a little bit better on this. But there is another table that'll populate down here under the viewed. Oh, hey, look at that. It's like a magic. As soon as I said it. These are all the profiles that have viewed that question. You can see it's just going to show the first 2,000 of them because it's going to be a large number of views. Again, this is an inline question, so it's viewed every time a page loads basically on but I feel this is a pretty useful table as far as looking at conversations and getting a quick way. This is, if I were to go under the progressive profiling, we have these a little bit more customized as far as cleaned up, removing test accounts and stuff like that, and keeping the responses a little bit more unified. But as a quick view, I think this works. Right, so that was conversations. So let's go back up to segments and usage. Um, Actually, let's look at, we did profiles and segments, but we went there, we navigated there, right? I can do this as a drop down, say, how many people have 25 plus visits. We got 1440 profiles in this segment. Pretty big one. So what if I were to want to scale this down by multiple segments? Let's do that. Let's click into multiple segments. And we'll do 25 plus visits again. We're getting that same 1440. Now, let's see. Let's only get the ones with the email. Email not empty. Okay, so now we're down to 264, and you'll notice they're all not empty. Out of that, who do we have that are test accounts? Still waiting. This is something I've actually already kind of improved on. Originally, it was that I had created a dashboard that would show you two, what would show you two, one would show you three, one would show you four. However, I've kind of figured out a way to make these a little bit more flexible and optional. So, well, come on, hurry up. It should show up pretty quickly. It doesn't take up to 35 minutes. I don't know where that's coming from. But with that in mind, this, let's see, test account. 50 plus views. Well, like I said, it shouldn't take up to 35 minutes. I wanted to do a full one, so I wasn't waiting and continuing to stagger it. But maybe this isn't quite the time to be doing this recording if we're not able to record those. All right. Coming back to it, maybe. Let's take a look at sessions. And so sessions will show me all the sessions that we have, right? I've actually got this sorted by the session start date. The most recent ones appearing on top. You'll see the refer host, the refer URL, the starting URL, and starting URL to the section. You can filter it by any of these. You can click most of these and they'll go into the filters as well. Not all of these remain on this dashboard. Like if I were to click a starting URL, that'll go to a page views dashboard. But let's first find a session with multiple IDs, that one. Okay, so here's one thing that we can do is we can click the session ID, and this is actually going to take us to page views. It'll show you all the page views within that session ID. So here it is. You can see they went from this page, this page, this page. And yeah, that was all the page views within this session. However, if I actually click the session on this page views, it's going to take me to a page duration, which is going to show me. I hope I sorted this one right. Doesn't look like it did. Yeah, I did. So this is the starting page, and they continued to go down these, and we're able to calculate the page duration based off of the timestamp of the first page to the update of the next page. Then when we get to the final one, it's the timestamp of the final page to the end of session time. So we were able to do that pretty consistently. The problem is that we can only do it within segments. I figured out how to do it outside of segments, but it continually timed out. I chopped it down to like groups of 20,000 or 50,000, and it was working fine. But then when you recombined them back together, it wasn't working unless. Well, what we need to do is be able to write to a table and create temporary tables to do stuff like that. And that's the limitation, is we have no write abilities. So everything is just temporary, or everything is in memory, right? So we can't stitch together different smaller queries to make a bigger query. Got a little off topic there, but so this is going to show the page duration basically for within that session. Ideally, we would like to be able to take that page duration and make it outside of this dashboard, because that would make it so we would be able to compare, right? We'd be able to set up what page are they on the most. We'd be able to set that value and sort by it or filter by it or anything else. Currently, all we can do is look at it based off of the session ID, which isn't all that helpful, but at least it gives us a little bit of an understanding. So yeah, the page view. Oops. The page view is a pretty interesting, handy dashboard. We've got a lot of different URL filters, or different filters for it. I want it to load in entirely, because basically this should be showing all the page views from the most recent page views down. Which is kind of interesting. So, but we can filter that. Obviously, we filtered by session ID, because that shows all the page views within a session. We could filter it by URL. So we could say, hey, who all has seen this page? How many views? When were they? We could filter it by refer. So, well, let's just talk about refer and refer host, because they're kind of combined, whichever you prefer to filter by. But we could take a particular refer and see all the page views that we're getting from it, and by time. So within certain date ranges and things like that, as far as where those page views are going to, what pages, if they come from Google, or they staying, how long is their session, a lot of that information. We could filter it by SEO UID, so that's by profile, which means we would be able to see all the page views of a particular profile. And then we could filter it by date range. So all of these are combinable. If we're looking, what a particular profile looked at in the month of March, we could set all of those different parameters up, or filters up. Then another one I added was the URL starts with, just for the fact that oftentimes we'll get people come to the page with URL parameters and things like that kind of obscure the page views. So it's good to look at all of those as well, right? So see how many people looked at a particular article. We don't want to remove all the people that looked at it with a URL parameter. So it looks like this is going to start going slowly. Yeah. Oh, that's loading. Refer and refer hosts have been loading slowly before. URLs are the big ones. So I think I might need to do this at another time, because this was working a whole lot better when I started. Well, I'm going to continue on, and we'll come back and maybe hit on these again. But we've talked about sessions, we've talked about page duration, we've talked about page views. We're on page views now. We looked at conversations a little bit. We looked at observers, campaigns. Let's talk about campaigns. It's a bad sign. All right. So campaigns. We can look at this by campaign name, or we can look at by profile, SEUID. So if I were to pull up that one, how many campaigns is this profile part of? Looks like only women's leadership. Now let's look at women's leadership. How many people are part of that profile? We got 9. I don't know if clicking this does anything. I don't think so. Yeah. So basically, this just tells you, let's get rid of this. Let's find the campaign. Let's look at me. So I'm on multiple campaigns, and it shows the date that I was added to that campaign, with the most recent one appearing in the top. Pretty simple table. There's not much to it, but you'll get redirected here from either the profile property usage, if you see a campaign, or not this, pardon me, the segment usage. If you see a campaign and you go in here, then that autofills there. Oh, well, there's actually nobody part of that campaign. 0. Let's go back. Yeah, couple people part of this campaign. Interesting. So since this is organized by time added, it's duplicating people that have been added multiple times. But I believe that's the same that works on the campaign or within the UI of Circus. All right, integrations. So this is probably the slowest and the least useful of all the dashboards, but it was something that we could track. So basically, this is the list of all the integrations that we have in here, and this is all the integrations, meaning it's got imports in here, or pardon me, exports. What this table does, it goes through all the profile properties that have been updated by an integration, because that's where that data lies. There's not profiles that were updated by an integration, but it's actually profile properties. So that makes sense, because there's multiple different ways that or multiple different integrations can update the same profile. So you have to work on the profile property level as far as what is being updated. So basically, I don't know where I'm going with this. Basically, the only ones that are going to be displayed here are imports, because those imports are the only ones that affected a profile, right? So if I were to go to UTM email migration import, I don't really know if there's anything on this or not, but we'll find out. So as I was saying, this is probably the slowest one. And it kind of goes back to the idea of, well, what I was saying is that the effects are on the profile properties. So in order to gain this information, you have to go through all the profile property data, get that updated. And if you were to look at what is it? Profile data is the actual table. So what that is every profile in there, millions of profiles have got some, upwards of 200 profile properties on it. Some of them, 1 or 2 profile properties, many of them 50, maybe 60 profile properties. But each one of those is a line under that profile data. So in order to capture this information, we have to go through all of those lines, and then cross-reference those lines with the profile that it's in. So it is a little bit of an intensive query. However, it all does work. It doesn't time out, or it normally works and normally doesn't time out. I kind of think we've hit on everything. Profile property usage. Let me do this one more time, make sure. Oh, Profile property review. Yep, we talked about this because this shows all the profiles on a, or all the properties on a profile, or all the profiles of a particular profile or particular property. Segment usage, and this shows where all the segments are being used. Profiles in segment. This gets a little bit more in depth within the segment as far as showing profiles. Multiple segments. This is how we can see what profiles are in common. It's kind of a Venn diagram amongst all these, you're selecting multiple segments. Sessions, this shows basically at a session level as far as the page views. You can filter it by a number of different things. Page duration. This is if you're looking at page views and you dive a little bit deeper, clicking on the session ID, it's going to show you the page duration of that session. Let me try to see if I remember one with a couple. Yeah. So this is all session 117. I think this is actually an internal, if you look at the actual website or sites that it's looking at. So I just know that it worked for me as far as being able to pull up multiples. Page views, this is super useful as far as different filters to look at different page views. Let's go actually back to session. I have no idea. Might not be a session even. Give it a moment. Yeah, I think it would definitely have slowed them down. This list of segments should be relatively fast to pop in. It's really crazy that that's the last thing. What I'm trying to show is, let's go page views maybe. Like this, let's do session. It's like I need the weather to be particular perfect weather for this to work. Super frustrating. Well, what I want to show is what page views looks like under as a URL search. So let's just do, won't even let me do that when it's acting like this. Well, looks like I'm gonna have to do this again.